Okay, today we're going to read chapter 2, Sharing the Wealth, from How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes by Peter Schiff. Say Peter Schiff. All right. Remember Abel?
Yeah.
The guy who catches the fish with the...
Yeah.
What is this?
Net.
A fishing net, right? Who invented the fishing net? Was it him or his two buddies? No, it was him. Remember, the other guys are still fishing with their hands.
Oh.
Remember? Okay. Abel, the entrepreneur, seems to have a bright future. But what about the rest of the island? Haven't we just created a caste system of the haves and have-nots? Will Baker and Charlie suffer because of Abel's success? Not likely, although it was never his intention to benefit anyone other than himself. Abel's capital helps everyone nevertheless. Let's see how, okay? And this is the picture of what we're going to see right now, and I'll explain in a second, okay? After witnessing the ease in which Abel now catches his fish, Baker and Charlie ask him to share his innovative fish catcher. "Hey Abel," said Charlie, "since you use that thingy only every other day, how about you let me use it the day that you're out doing other stuff?" "Come on, share the wealth, buddy," added Baker. But Abel didn't just fall off the tuna truck yesterday. He remembers his self-sacrifice. He remembered their scorn, and he thought of the risk. What if they break my net? What if they just don't give it back to me? Then it's back to square one for me. So long, designer leaf wear. With all this downside, Abel turned them down and said, "Sorry guys, nope. Can't do it. I made my own net, so can you. At least you guys know that the thing works." Although Charlie saw the efficiency of using a net, he was apprehensive about the prospect of building one for himself. He responded to Abel, "How do I know I'll get it right? I've never made one of those things before. And besides, I don't do well with hunger. I get the shakes. I might starve to death before I make a decent net." Baker stepped forward with another proposal, and he said, "Okay, tightwad, so you're not going to do us any favors. We get it. But how about this? Lend us some of your surplus fish to eat it while we make our own nets. That way we won't starve as we build, and we'll repay every fish we borrow from you from the extra fish that we catch." Although the idea appealed to Abel more than giving away his net, he was still very skeptical. "But if I lend you my fish, I have no guarantee that you won't just lie on the beach and take the day off. Even if you build your own nets, they may not even work. Either way, you'll never be able to repay me, and I would have lost all of my savings for nothing. You got to do better than that." So this is where he is negotiating his two fish, and they're trying to get it from him. You see that? He's saying no. Charlie and Baker conceded the point. They realized that they were asking Abel to take a risk for no personal benefit, but the lure of extra fish was too strong. Before long, they came up with a way to entice him into taking a chance. They thought they crunched the numbers, and finally a financial idea was born. So they had a great idea, right? Baker approached Abel and said, "Let's make a deal. For every fish you lend us, we'll pay you back 2. So they're thinking about the idea right there. You see that? So the idea is, for every fish that you lend us, I'll pay you back 2. Okay? Sit down, Mama. Yes. That's 100% profit. Where else are you going to get a return like that on an island like this? Abel persuaded. Now that interests me, said Abel. He said with no apparent irony. Abel thought of the riches. If I lend them 2 fish, I'll get back.
4 fish.
I'll be 2 fish richer without doing any work. I'll be a fish tycoon. To some, it may appear that Abel had crossed the line. If this were a Hollywood movie, he would start twirling his wax mustache. He will be making money off the backs of others' labor, drawing profits from their toil. But that image doesn't hold water. Even if Abel intends to fill his own fish coffers, his greed, for lack of a better word, will provide a benefit that would have otherwise been unavailable. Ahorita te enseño la foto, mamá.
Which one is it?
It's important to note that Abel does not need to make the loan. He has a range of options, including these 4. 1, he simply might hold on to his fish for future use. This is the most secure option. He will be guaranteed to not have any losses, but of course, his savings will grow. 2, he could simply indulge himself and consume his savings. 3, he could build his own net rental company. He reckoned that if he consumed one of his reserve fish a day for 2 days, he could build 2 more nets. He could then rent the extra nets to Baker and Charlie for half of a fish each day, with each of the 2 kicking in half of a fish every day to his net rental company. Abel would have 1 fish a day he needs to live without ever having to go fishing himself. Hello, early retirement. And that's his store right here. And that's him eating it, and that's him keeping all the fish. Right?
Bobby, look at my fish.
All right, we're almost done, guys.
Chapter 2?
Yeah. In this scenario, Baker and Charlie will be able to catch 2 fish per day with their new nets. After paying Abel their half fish rent per day, they will still have 1.5 fish per day each. That's 50% more than they would have had with no nets. It's a win-win. Although intriguing, Abel noticed some flaws in his logic. Baker and Charlie might rent the nets for 2 days. Elena, can you go to sleep, please? Then use their savings to build nets for themselves. In such a scenario, he will be only 2 fish ahead. That's a real risk. Number 4, he could lend out his 2 fish to Baker and Charlie and charge them 100% interest in this scenario. He'll get 4 fish back if they paid him back in full with interest. But there was always a risk that they stiffed him. Decisions. To summarize, Abel and the society can do only 5 things with their savings. 1, he can save what he has saved. He can consume what he has saved. 3, he can lend out what he has saved. 4, he can invest what he has saved. 5, he can try a combination of the other 4 options. Unquestionably, Abel's ultimate decision will be based on his own desire for risk and reward. In almost all cases, his choice will benefit others, and no choice will impose a burden on his neighbors. In the end, Abel decides to make the loan. So he decided to go for option number 3. He can lend out what he saved. All right, reality check. As a result of Abel's willingness and ability to make loans, Baker and Charlie now have nets that they didn't own before. With nets available to all, the island's collective fishing capacity has been raised from 3 fish per day to 6. The economy has doubled in size and the future looks brighter. But this didn't happen just because the 3 guys were unsatisfied with their limited lifestyle. Their hunger, which is labeled demand in economic terms, was necessary to spur economic growth, but not sufficient to achieve it. Demand for more is natural to all humans. No matter what we have, we always want more. Maybe not more stuff, but certainly more time, more fun, and more choices, all of which requires more capital. Abel, Baker, and Charlie likely had the same fish gripes for years. The difference is that they were finally able to expand productivity to meet those demands. With their extra fish, the islanders can finally eat more than one fish per day, but the economy didn't grow because they consumed more. They consumed more because the economy grew. This is a simple concept, but it's amazing what modern economists can do with a simple concept. Most economists think that demand can be increased by giving people more money to spend, but that doesn't change real demand. Just how much people can spend on items that have been produced. Only by increasing supply can people actually get more of what they demand. Let me read that again because it applies to what's happening right now with the coronavirus. Most economists think that demand can be increased by giving people more money to spend, but that doesn't change real demand. Just how much people can spend on items that have been produced. Only by increasing supply can people actually get more of what they want.
Was it this page? Or this page?
Oh, there's more, guys.
Wow, chapter 2 has a lot. Oh, you're just passing that?
To some, it may appear that Abel used his advantage to exploit his needy neighbors. And while it is true that he made a profit without working, it doesn't mean he gets something for nothing. Abel's profit is his compensation for the risk he takes. What's more, his ability to profit doesn't hinder the advancement of his peers. Because of Abel's desire to make a profit from his savings, Baker and Charlie got the opportunity to build nets without having to underconsume. If they succeed, they will have improved their economic futures without having to go hungry. The rest will be gravy. I'll be there soon. Or more accurately, fish oil. At that point, they themselves will have excess capital. If they fail and are unable to pay back the loan, it's Abel who takes the loss. Essentially, the lender can benefit only if the borrower benefits. Of course, others may not see the mutual benefit as clearly. What if upon seeing Abel's sudden expansion of wealth, Baker and Charlie grew envious and demanded a portion of his savings? Hey, a la cama, a la cama, a la cama.
Papi, is this good one?
Yes. Imagine this alternative scenario. A la cama, mi amor.
Why?
Baker fretted. Look at that guy lording it over with us with his fancy palm leaf tuxedo, while we sweat it out in the waves every day wrangling slimy fish. Hasn't that guy ever heard of charity? Couldn't he just spare me a fish or two so that I could take a day off once in a while? He's got so many fish piling up, he'd never even know one was gone. Charlie concurred. Share the wealth. Elitist. Or what about this scenario? Let's suppose Abel, feeling somewhat guilty about his comparative wealth, was swayed by their arguments and gave away his fish, asking for nothing in return. What would Baker and Charlie do with the extra fish? If they were free from the burden of repayment, they will most likely use the gift to increase their leisure time. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with leisure, in fact, it is the goal of almost most human activity, Baker and Charlie's vacation will not increase the island's productive capacity by a herring. And so while the charity option sounds more magnanimous and may improve Abel's popularity, it doesn't provide the economic boost that a business loan would. The bottom line is that anything that leads to more fish catching production benefits the island. The more fish there are, the more possibilities there are for everybody to eat more. Do something besides fishing, or perhaps do nothing at all. I'm almost done, guys. Reality check. So some may wonder what would happen if Abel turns out to be a really greedy guy. Who will use his new wealth just to get richer and richer? Is this really a danger? Is the only way to make his savings grow without working himself is to make it available to other members of the community? Why would he hoard it? Otherwise, his wealth will stay the same or get smaller as he personally consumes it. The best thing about private capitalism is that it forces those who may only be motivated by personal gain to raise the living standards of others. Takeaway: wealth is always a relative term. In a primitive society where little is produced, even the richest can't match the material well-being available to the poor of an industrialized economy. In the Middle Ages, even the mightiest kings lacked the basic amenities that nearly everyone in the United States now takes for granted. Things like central heating, indoor plumbing, fresh vegetables in the winter, and although Baker and Charlie will imagine that fishing just every other day to be the height of luxury, from our perspective, such as a lifestyle hardly seems enviable. But the fact that there are degrees of wealth has always struck some as being inherently unfair. Central in this unease is the belief that the rich become that way because they take the wealth from others, thereby creating the poor. In modern economics, some have even labeled this idea the labor theory of value, which states that profit is created by paying workers less than they're worth. In this view, entrepreneurs like Abel, or giant corporations for that matter, can get rich only if they succeed in making others poor. This idea has everything to do with moral posturing and nothing to do with reality. The reason that the rich get that way, at least initially, is that they offer something of value to others. Abel offers loans to those who have inadequate savings. If he profits, it's only because the service he provides is valuable to others. If Abel were a big bully and could simply steal half of his neighbor's catch every day, then it will be true that his relative wealth will be derived from the relative poverty of those he oppresses. But these actions, which will involve forcing others to do something against their own interest, will not only increase the island's overall productive capacity. He will simply take what others have produced, and the island's production will remain the same. More likely, overall capacity would fall. The oppressed could cut back on their work when they realize the fruits of their labor will be stolen. Large-scale examples of such coercion dominate history. Slavery, serfdom, and peasantry all come to mind. And while workers do respond to force when their self-interest is denied, they respond far better if they are the beneficiaries of their labor. Unfortunately, examples of large-scale economic freedom are rare in global history. But when self-interest is allowed to flourish, productive capacity expands quickly. The use of credit is the perfect example of how economic freedom works to everyone's benefit. As long as the lenders and the borrowers are free to strike their own terms, the collective results will be a success. However, as we will see later on, the market for loans can be distorted by outside forces. When it is, disaster usually ensues. We're done with chapter 2. Chapter 3 tomorrow is going to be about the many uses of credit.
Where does it says tomorrow? Where does it says tomorrow?
Well, we're going to read that tomorrow. Okay? And this is what the story is going to be tomorrow, guys.
What? Oh. Can I see? Is that chapter 3?
Yeah.
They're trying to make their net.
That's Baker and Charlie. They're trying to make their own nets now because Abel has his own.
Papi, can I give Mommy a kiss?
No, you already gave her a kiss.
No?
Yes, you did.
No.